Over the past 2 decades, the nature of the Somali crisis and the international context within which it is occurring have been constantly changing. It has mutated from a civil war in the 1980s through state collapse, clan factionalism and warlordism in the 1990s to a globalized ideological conflict in the first decade of the new millennium. Displacement of people to neighboring countries has been the biggest challenge so far. To this end, various partnerships have formed initiatives geared at reducing human suffering amongst the refugees. One such partnership is between United Nations Center for Regional Development, United Nations High Commission for Refugees, International Organization for Migration, and United Nations Development Program.
UNCRD Africa Office was established in 1992 to support African countries to design and implement effective regional development policies and programs.
Our partnership with UNCRD is much valued by both of us. We started the discussion to work together early in 2012.
Our relationship with UNCRD began late last year when we had initial consultations.
With a donation from the Japanese government, United Nations Center for Regional Development moved to Dadaab refugee camp, whose 99% occupants are Somali citizens. With hindsight of refugee return and collaborating with others for much-needed synergies.
And by June 2012, we together went to Dadaab and we accomplished the needs assessment exercise.
Where this rapid needs assessment was basically to look at what exactly are the issues on the ground.
The gaps that exist and how our partnership could add value in terms of delivering products and outcomes that would improve the livelihood of refugees there.
5 main areas stood out as critical intervention points. Conflict management and prevention.
There are 2 types of conflict. There is inter-conflict, which is within the camp, within the refugees themselves, the refugee population. Now, the other conflict is between the host community and the refugee community. And this is, this could be as a result of scramble for resources.
Conflict amongst the refugees and the host communities was endemic. Peace education and reconciliation building through workshops was one of the key activities that was carried out by the partners to manage the conflict situation.
A total of 4 workshops were organized. The first 2 targeted the refugees and the host community respectively, and the other 2 were mixed participants from both refugees and host community took place.
We allowed the groups to select their own, the top 3 individuals who could easily train others. So they came over, we trained them within DMO, this office complex that is, and we trained them on almost any area that you think of. We trained them in conflict management, small business management, sales and marketing, all those things that you would think of. And we expect them to go back, and after that training, we expected them to go back and actually empower their fellow group members.
They were working as carpenters, they were trained together, so they were able to have that common understanding of each other and how it built a peaceful coexistence, if I might say. So they were able to work together, and this helped to ease some of the tensions that might have been felt between the 2 communities.
With the business of conflict resolution, there are always challenges.
I remember we were supposed to go and do a monitoring visit by UNCRD. The trip had to be postponed twice because of security situation in Dadaab. NGO humanitarian workers were abducted, but fortunately they were released, or they were rescued, I should say, in Somalia and brought back after a few days. But there have been a lot of other abductions in the past that have occurred, but also explosions and IEDs, which have aimed at the police mostly and other humanitarian workers.
Livelihood and empowerment.
The ratio of, in Dadaab district, former Dadaab district, ratio of refugees to host communities is 80 to 20, which means we only had 20% of host communities. So over the years we have had the competition, the complaints from the host communities that refugees are getting more assistance, more attention, and the host communities are being neglected. So that is where we try and bridge the gap. We moved towards the host communities to assist with now identification of programs such as the livelihood support, the shelter projects, the peace building components, and mostly they have come to appreciate the livelihoods training.
In any war-struck nation, human suffering affects mostly women and the youth. In Somalia's 10.3 million national population, women and girls constitute 62%, while the youth aged below 18 years form 50%. International Organization for Migration, in conjunction with United Nations Center for Regional Development, have facilitated empowerment projects in refugee camps among these groups to enable them become self-reliant in the short run and also seen as pillars of stability given their overbearing stakehold currently and the future of Somalia.
Toward this goal, we have bought 100 computers, tables, chairs, about 100 UPS, and we bought also modems. We trained the refugees how to use these computers, and we gave them these computers, and as our monitoring activities recently showed, that the refugees have opened cyber cafes and they are running successful businesses.
We have got help from UNCRD, so they provide us another 10 computers, and we had firstly 6 computers. So these are the computers being provided by UNCRD to us, and it helped us much, and we have been using for for several times.
We have 2 teachers. One is teaching the afternoon, one is teaching the morning, and we are paying money.
We also support them with the business skills trainings because our aim is to improve their livelihoods. And we support them also with a startup kit, a basic startup kit, which comprises startup tools, startup materials, and a rent for 2 months to rent a business room where they can practice their businesses.
We are here with one of the groups which UNCRD supported in improving the livelihood of women's refugees here in the refugee camp. I am with the chair lady who is representing one of the groups. We have supported about 16 groups, and we provided 90 sewing machines, 90 stools, and we also trained them on how to use these machines through several training and capacity building programs. We have also bought some accessories which will help them to maintain the machines. The technicians are here now repairing the machines, improving them so that the machines run very smoothly, effectively. This is in fact one of the follow-up and monitoring activities of the project.
We do many activities here, like sewing of clothes, new clothes, sewing of old clothes. We also do tie and dye. We also do embroidery, like you can see over there. Some of the group members, do the sewing here. The other group members take the already made clothes to the market. They sell it in the market to the other community members. So groups are divided. Everybody is assigned a certain duty.
Being a refugee camp, refugees movement is limited and requires permission for the government to move and trade out of the camp. This poses as a bottleneck in the improvement of the camp.
That limited movement also does not help much in terms of them getting better market for their products, and also to connect with other people doing business outside. And there are few refugees who manage to get permission to leave the camp and go to Garissa and do some business, or come to Nairobi and do some business. But this is for just a few. And that's why there is need to have expanded kind of livelihoods activities in the camps to cater for the larger population.
Over time, the number of refugees in Dadaab camp has reduced, not only because of the empowerment efforts, but also because of lack of resources and search for greener pastures.
Because part of the reduction was as a result of a verification exercise that took place in 2013. Before the exercise, the population at that time was 486,000. And after the verification, it came down to 406,000. So over 80,000 reduction. And this is what people strongly believe, that these people must have crossed the border and went back home.
The community mobilization is perhaps the most interesting part of this exercise, where the refugees themselves become part of the workforce, and they provided the necessary labor to build the shelters, and that in a way allowed the project to be a source of livelihood to many of them. It also became a place where skills and knowledge is transferred from one group to another, including through the training of more than 100 refugees on carpentry and masonry skills. And it also helped the communities to come together and bridge relations and establish a strong sense of solidarity among them.
Shelter.
We partnered with IOM and UNHCR and provided 335 transitional shelters, which really improved very much the living conditions of the refugees.
The temporary shelter were not extremely sustainable due to the harsh weather of northern Kenya and could not hold large families, so there was an initiative to create semi-permanent structures made of interlocking stabilized bricks. This, however, was regarded as permanent structures, and the Kenyan government did not allow it amidst the backdrop of voluntary Somali repatriation.
It happened on the heel of the large arrivals of refugees from Somalia into Kenya, particularly the Dadaab camp. And the influx of refugees at the time was precipitated by the drought in the Horn of Africa a year before. The situation in the camps was dire. There was congestion. There was difficulty to reach refugees and provide services to them. And there was a need to improve their whereabouts and the accommodation that they need.
Now, the beauty of the transitional shelters is they can be constructed very rapidly, within less than a day, which means we would have the refugee occupants occupying their house within a day. Secondly, they can also be transformed in future to more permanent shelters, in the sense that the materials which will be moved from the transitional shelters can be transformed into latrines or kitchens. But since you have the timber structures already in place, the iron roofing in place, the doors, the windows, they are the same as an permanent ISSB shelter, only that the difference is the tarpaulins, which makes it temporary. So when you remove the tarpaulin and you put the bricks, the ISSB bricks, it becomes a permanent shelter.
In partnership with UNHCR, we bought and distributed about 5,000 tents in cambios.
Education. Various stakeholders have come in to educate the refugees on issues that affect them to improve their livelihoods.
We partnered with UNICEF and we trained teachers. About 240 elementary school teachers were trained by Garissa Teachers Training College. And this activity has very much improved the quality of teaching in the Dadaab refugee camp, as we have learned later on when we did evaluation.
Energy.
The environment is highly degraded due to the influx of refugees who have cut down the trees, both for firewood purposes as well as for building their shelter. And the host community has been also cutting the trees and for firewood and also for shelter. And because of that, the area is highly degraded.
The partners came together to conduct workshops on environmental conservation management and conflict prevention.
Every household in the refugee camps requires energy, some form of energy with which to cook, with which to heat up their houses, especially in the evenings, and also with which to light up in the evenings, because we don't provide paraffin or anything like that. So energy in whatever form is very, very critical here. It's very important.
And we also partnered with WFP and we provided 3,000 energy saving stoves.
There was an interagency study committee which was formed to look at what is called the safe activities, safe access to fuel and alternative energy. And out of this study committee, some guidelines were formed on how to address the issue of safe access to fuel and alternative energy. Now, WFP took up these guidelines and piloted the SAFE project in Dadaab. This is a project where UNCRD, when they heard of what we were doing, came in to offer support to expand it to be bigger.
On behalf of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, I would like to thank the United Nations Center for Rural Development for coming here today to make this very much needed contribution to the efficient use of energy and sustainable use of environmental resources. We are very grateful at UNHCR for this strong strategic partnership that we have and the support that you have given the residents of the Dadaab camps over the years. Their contributions in terms of the size of the population may not be there to meet all the needs, but they are being made in very strategic areas.
Recently, UNCRD also partnered with RRDO and FAIDA, and we bought 3,500 energy saving stoves, and we are in the process of distributing these energy saving stoves in the Dadaab area.
Our stove has it's very efficient. It's actually one of the most efficient stoves we have in the market. It's capable of reducing up to 50% of fuel consumption. It can also reduce up to 60% of carbon dioxide produced. Can reduce greatly diseases which are caused by indoor house pollution, indoor air pollution. And it's about 30% efficient. So compared to the normal stoves, the three-stone firewood, which is about 10% efficient. So you can see it has a factor of 3.
In total, 6,500 energy-saving stoves were distributed within the Dadaab refugee complex. firewood distribution program was started in 1998, mainly to address environment degradation and harassment of women and girls in the fields.
We have noticed the depletion. When we started the project, we could harvest firewood, refugees could harvest firewood from as near as 5-6 kilometers radius of the camp. But currently, the firewood harvesting zones are as far away as 80 kilometers away. We are talking of places like Liboy.
Due to the vastness of the camp, other forms of energy were considered.
We have been looking at various options that can replace firewood. One of them is ethanol. As you know, ethanol is produced in Western Kenya as a byproduct of sugar production. We have tested that, and it can work. The only thing is it's a bit expensive, but it has some potential for use in the camps. We are also looking at something like LPG gas, which by and by we think it could also replace firewood.
Another alternative source of energy we have tried is what we call briquettes. Briquettes, these are compacted wood materials. Like sodas can be compacted, and then they make what we call briquettes. Briquettes are also good. They are good. We tried them. We have piloted that within the refugee camps, and it works very well. But again, the challenge with the briquettes is that we do not produce briquettes locally in Kenya. In fact, the briquettes that we are using, we source them from Poland.
Environment. In partnership with host communities, eco-friendly firewood harvesting sites have been established in the surrounding areas.
In every village, we have 11 villages, what we have designated as the firewood harvesting locations. These are locations that we have agreed upon between RRDO, the host communities, the Kenya Forest Service as part of the government, and also NEMA. NEMA is National Environment Management Committee. So we designate locations where we think that we have adequate firewood. So what we do is that within every location, we have what we call the firewood harvesting firewood allocation committee. So this firewood allocation committee is the one in charge of selecting the contractors and also supervising the kind of firewood that the contractors collect for us. It is an environment management system.
In each of those camps, we've established a tree nursery, except in Cambios, which is the newest, which was set up the other day. And each of the tree nurseries has a capacity to produce over 50,000 tree seedlings every year, different species. But the dominant one is the neem tree, which does very well here.
If we work as partners, then we will be able to achieve maximum efficiency and be very effective in our delivery of services.
Refugee camps are usually places where people stay for a long period of time, and they languish in terms of not being able to upgrade their skills and get the necessary exposure to work. So providing them with the possibility to work, to earn some money, and to upgrade their skills is a contribution to the refugees' self-reliance and bode well to their preparing some of them when the time comes to go back to their home communities or where they come from.
The trainings we have carried out together with UNCRD, we provide those skills, yes, but we provide the equipment as well. And vice versa also has been happening before. You provide the equipment, but you don't provide the skills required to run the enterprises. So we are trying to correct this and ensure that both our beneficiaries have both the skills and the equipment to actually carry out their enterprise.
So all in all, I think together we have been able to set a good example for agencies to work together. I just hope that what we have done in Dadaab is not the end and is rather the beginning for more fruitful work to follow.